primarily freezing rain until Thursday in west, central, and north Texas, with sub-freezing temperatures expected throughout the week. Heavy rainfall and even flash flood potential is in the forecast for Wednesday and Thursday in central, east, and southeast Texas. As it concerns the roads, as you might perceive, driving conditions are extremely dangerous right now in many parts of the state of Texas. According to TxDOT, where you'll get a more detailed briefing momentarily, approximately 1,600 roads are impacted. TxDOT has used more than 1.3 million gallons of brine and other material to treat the roadways. There are about 2,100 pieces of equipment being used by TxDOT. Because of icing, many roads in Texas will remain very dangerous for the next 24 to 48 hours. Be cautious, especially for things like black ice, where you're driving down the roadway, you have no idea that what you're about to cross is ice. And if you hit your brakes on it, it can cause your car to completely lose control. Anybody who needs to be out driving needs to be very cautious of the conditions, because your eye may not be able to perceive the hazard that's in front of you. 18-wheelers in particular need to be extra vigilant. And you see the sign in front of me I want to call attention to. drivetexas.org is a website location that you can go to learn about weather conditions on roadways as well as road closures. As it concerns a power update, as of 9 o'clock this morning, there were approximately 7,000 power outages across the state. These outages are actively being addressed by local utilities, the utility that provides power to your home. The Public Utilities Commission expects to see some local outages as a result of icing of electric infrastructure and power lines. It's important to remember that local outages are not a reason to say that there is a problem with the power grid. The power grid is functioning just fine as we speak. If you experience an outage, please check with your local provider for updates. If you need help identifying your provider or finding their contact information, please visit the Public Utilities Commission website at puc.texas.gov/storm. Utilities deployed resources in advance of the event to address icing as issues arise. And once again, to emphasize, the power grid itself is functioning very effectively as we speak right now, and there is not anticipated to be any challenge to the power grid in the state of Texas. One thing that's important during times like this is for the public to be aware of warming centers. As of this morning, more than 60 warming centers have been opened by local officials across the state. These warming center locations can be found at tdem.texas.gov/warm. The public is also encouraged to call 211 and visit 201texas.org to monitor local media outlets for their closest warming center. As far as responders are concerned, there are a total number of 14 state agencies that are responding to this winter storm. There are almost 4,000 professionals who are working to respond to the storm, and more than 2,500 pieces of state equipment are being used to respond to the storm. The Texas National Guard, they are now operating 24/7 to assist in responding to the storm. They have 6 winter weather packages positioned across the state to assist stranded motorists, clear roadways of debris, and provide welfare checks to Texans. They have engaged at least 55 vehicles as well as 124 responders. And they've rostered helicopters to be able to deliver food and water as needed. The Texas Parks and Wildlife has at least 30 responders focusing on to be ready for search and rescue operations. Going back to the Public Utilities Commission, power outage monitoring and coordination with utility providers is an ongoing thing that they are doing. They have plenty of reserves and plenty of power. The Railroad Commission, you'll hear from Commissioner Christy Craddock about that here shortly. DPS, they're responding to many crashes across the state. Listen, there's a lot of vehicle accidents across the state because of the status of the roadways, and DPS is among the professionals responding to that. In closing these comments, there are many state and local government offices and schools throughout the state that are impacted in these areas that are currently closed. They may remain closed for the remainder of today and possibly tomorrow. Those decisions will be made at the local level. Texans should use extra caution on the roadway. And once again, visit drivetexas.org to check road conditions before you go out and travel. Texas can locate winter weather resources by visiting tdem.texas.gov and clicking the Winter Weather Resources button on the homepage. We appreciate everybody in their cooperation in the state of Texas to do everything you can to protect your own safety by making sure that you stay off the roadways and assist others as needed. At this time, I will pass to the Texas Department of Transportation.
Thank you, Governor. As the Governor said, driving conditions around the state due to the weather that we're seeing are very dangerous. And we have had a period now of about 24 hours of significant icing that have caused these conditions. Not only are they dangerous, but they're also very dynamic. The way this weather system is set up, there can be some very narrow bands, there can be spots that can at times create a false sense of security for motorists, where they're driving along and then you hit an area where there may have been a band of precipitation come through, freezing precipitation that can surprise motorists and create even more hazardous conditions. Our crews have been mobilized across the state now for several days, treating roadways, pre-treating roadways, and now responding to the conditions that we're seeing. Most of that is focused in this winter storm warning area that many of your media outlets have shown on the weather broadcast, which encompasses a very broad area of the central part of the state of Texas, and that area is beginning to grow as this event continues. I also want to thank many of our partner agencies in the state, the Texas Forest Service, the Department of Public Safety, Texas Military Division, Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, and some of our adjoining TxDOT districts who have not been impacted but have sent crews to help backfill and support along with contract operations. The Governor talked about the number of equipment and the personnel that have been mobilized, and it continues, as I've said, to be a very dynamic situation. We have seen issues throughout the state in the Metroplex. A number of freeway sections and ramps and overpasses have been impacted. They have been closures at times, extending all the way down to here in Austin, and we expect that area to continue to grow. And then we've seen some very significant incidents occur in some of our rural areas, Interstate 20 in Parker County, out near Weatherford and Kimball County along I-10 in the Junction area. In those two areas, we had incidents where two tractor trailers got involved in a crash, and that shut down the interstates in both of those locations. And when those things happen, it takes a while to get those vehicles cleared and to get those roadway sections reopened. And if we're experiencing, continuing to experience precipitation, freezing precipitation in those areas as the traffic backs up, we're not able to get in and treat that, and it may take a while for us to be able to clear locations when these types of incidents occur. We continue to be in the middle of an event that we expect will continue to extend for another 36 to potentially 48 hours. The conditions right now are dangerous, and they are likely to get worse. And so we're continuing to emphasize, if you must drive, slow down. If there's any way that you can avoid driving, please do so. Please don't get out on the roadways if you can allow that, it can make that occur. If you do have to get out as well, be prepared, particularly if you're traveling in rural areas, that you may be delayed for many hours. And so take plenty of fuel, water, coats, blankets even. And as the governor pointed out, drivetexas.org is a site that we continue to use to update road conditions and provide the most up-to-date information possible to motorists and to media outlets.
All right. Thank you very much. And now Commissioner Christy Craddock with the Texas Railroad Commission.
Thank you, Governor. I hope. Thank you, Governor. Good morning. And we are in charge of natural gas. We are glad to say that the gas supply in this state is holding steady across the board. We've got 25 BCF will be produced today, which is a lot of natural gas. Production is holding steady as well, with limited exceptions and some spots out in West Texas and where there's some ice. And we appreciate TxDOT keep getting those roads and keeping those roads open for safety for our people out there traveling. And pipeline operators are reporting that pressure is steady and that those lines are packed. So we should have plenty of gas for the state. If you have an LDC issue, please contact your local distribution companies. But those companies are reporting that they have plenty of gas and that they are operating. Remember, if you smell gas, please turn it off and call. We want to make sure people are safe as we are heating our homes today. But we should have plenty of gas, and we are appreciative working with our partners to keep Texas going today.
Thank you very much. And now, Director McCraw, the Director of the Texas Department of Public Safety.
Thank you, Governor. The safest place to be if you're in the impacted area is to be at home. If you must get on the highways, the roadways, it doesn't matter where it is, in city, in rural areas, it doesn't really matter. I said, and just keep in mind, if you think that you might be driving too fast for the conditions, you are. Slow down. If you are in a crash or you have to stop, the safest place to be is remain in your vehicle with your seatbelt on, get off the roadway. If you can do that, you can help us, you can help emergency responders around the state. And if you do get in trouble, if you're stranded, you know, on the back of your driver's license, there's a roadside assistance number you can call, number one. Secondly, if anybody is injured, please call 911 so local responders can get to you. Thank you.
Director, would you please also share information about the injured trooper?
Well, yes, sir. Unfortunately, early today, which happens often in these storms like that, we had a trooper. And as you can imagine, always getting out, having to check. When you get out of that vehicle, you're at risk. And I believe he's arrived at the hospital now. It took about an hour and a half to get to the hospital, and he's certainly has some serious injuries because a person was driving too fast for the conditions, lost control of the vehicle, and ran into our trooper.
Thank you very much. And now we have Peter Lake, the chairman of the Public Utilities Commission.
Thank you, Governor. I want to echo what the governor said about the status of our power grid. We have adequate supply of generation to meet the demand for electricity across the ERCOT system. The reforms that were put in place are working. They worked last winter. They worked in a record-setting summer last summer. They worked last month, and they're going to work this week. We have plenty of reserves to make sure that the ERCOT grid is stable and powered throughout this weather event. As the governor said, the primary concern this week is icing at the local level. Ice accumulating on tree branches and power lines can lead to downlines and local outages. If your power goes out, call your local utility. You can find your local utility on the back of your monthly bill. If you need the contact information, go to puc.texas.gov/storm to find information about the utilities across the state. And most importantly, under no circumstances approach or touch a down power line. These power lines can still be energized and electrified, and they can electrify nearby objects like cars and fences. So please, 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 under no circumstances approach a down power line, even if someone is connected to it or in peril. Call local emergency officials immediately. Again, the grid is secure. We have adequate reserves. This is any outages will be local. Our utility companies across the state have pre-positioned crews and resources to make sure that if there are local outages, power can be restored as quickly as possible. We've got folks out in the freezing rain. Appreciate all the hard work to those men and women. They've got equipment like poles and conductors and transformers already out in the field so that any outages can be restored very, very quickly. Again, visit puc.texas.gov if you do lose power, and contact your local emergency officials if you do come across a down power line.
Thank you very much. And now the head of ERCOT, Pablo Vegas.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning. ERCOT has been preparing for Winter Storm Mara for the last several days, and we have all of the resources that we need to ensure reliable operations during this event. The ERCOT grid is not expecting to have any emergency conditions during this event, nor are we expecting a need to ask for conservation of any Texans. We are forecasting to have more than 10,000 megawatts of generating reserves online throughout this entire week. We expect any outages, as noted before, to be local in nature. If icing caused any outages on lines, we would expect the timetable for that restoration to be communicated from your local utility company. So please go to your local utility company website to get information about any outages. To stay informed on what's happening with regards to the ERCOT grid, please go to ERCOT.com. You can see there in real time the level of demand, the amount of reserves that we are carrying, as well as you can see the type of fuel and how electricity is being produced in real time across the state of Texas. So to reemphasize, we are not forecasting to have any issues with supply, and we have all of the resources that we need in order to ensure safe operations throughout this event. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now the head of the Texas Division of Emergency Management.
Go ahead. He was going to be a microphone. Go ahead.
All right, Chief Nim Kidd.
Thank you, Governor. And as you've heard, our state agencies are prepared for this event. We will be ready to respond to this. We believe this winter weather will last at least through Thursday. And so state agencies and our local government partners are ready. I would want to make sure that our citizens have done what they need to do to prepare their homes and prepare their cars. I will re-say what a lot of people at this table and this press conference have already said. If you do not have to get out and travel, don't get out and travel. If you do, please make sure your vehicle is prepared. Make sure that you have plenty of fuel. Make sure that you have water and food and blankets in your vehicle. You've also heard that the electric grid in Texas is ready for this event. I will tell you that won't stop people from having wrecks and hitting power lines and knocking down power lines and taking out transformers that could cause electricity outages at your home or business. You need to be prepared for that as well. Our local crews are out on the streets working around the clock to get services restored as fast as possible. If your house loses power and you decide to use a wood-burning or gas-burning appliance, please be very mindful of carbon monoxide exposure and carbon monoxide deaths. Those injuries and deaths are preventable during cold weather snaps like this. If you're going to use a gas-burning or wood-burning appliance or a generator inside your home, you've got to make sure there's plenty of ventilation there. And then finally, Governor, I want to thank all the first responders that are out there on the streets putting their lives at risk to keep Texans safe and keep the roads moving.
Thank you very much. We'll take a few questions.
Governor, why didn't you hold this press conference yesterday when winter weather was coming?
Well, we wanted to make sure we had a better understanding about both exactly what was going on and a better forecast of what was to come to make sure that we provide the notice that's going to be most accurate for the people of Texas.
Governor Abbott,
Go
you
ahead.
previously said, as is the Lieutenant Governor, that you do want to address the electric grid this session. How ready is the grid for this winter storm if you do think it needs more work?
Sure. Well, first, very importantly, I signed 14 laws last session that fixed the flaws in the power grid that led to the challenges we had during Winter Storm Uri. And we've seen the results of that. Last summer, we set 11 new all-time records for power demand with ease. The winter storm we had in December, far colder than this, we met that with ease. And so the power grid has shown that under even extreme conditions with the population we have right now, the grid is adequate to address our needs. But we also know Texas is the fastest growing state for population. There are more businesses moving here, more people moving here, so we know this fact. We're going to need more power generation going forward, and we will accomplish that. Part of that is based upon the design that was set out by the PUC earlier this month. There'll be other ideas that will surface this session. Bottom line is this. We're not going to end this session without having strategies to make sure that we will be able to provide the power to the people of this state for the next 40 years. Sure.
Governor, ICE is a different dynamic, a different animal. I've seen images of interstates and roadways that are just in lockdown. Tractor trailer rigs, for miles. What's being done right now to clear those roadways, because commerce has stopped in those locations? And is there any kind of new strategy that's employed in getting those road clears? Because we're talking about so many rigs that are just parked. What's being done to clear that out?
So, first of all, obviously, the roadways are very hazardous right now. We cannot overemphasize that, which is exactly why you heard repeatedly during this press conference that if you do not need to be out on the roads, don't be out there. Also, as I said earlier, it's particularly hazardous for large rigs like 18-wheelers that have more difficulty slowing as needed. But also they're going over bridges that may be more iced and may have black ice on it, which is difficult for them or others to see. That said, as it concerns what is being done to address it, I'll have the spokesperson for TxDOT give you more information about that.
Thank you, Governor. As the Governor mentioned, with the conditions that we're seeing, we're going to have problems. One of the things that we are doing and that we have improved upon, in my viewpoint, with the work with TDM and many others, has been this joint agency mobilization. And so when we have incidents like what have occurred out on Interstate 20 out near Weatherford and I-10, we're able to call upon the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department and the Texas Forest Service and Texas Military Division, along with DPS, to help our crews get out and mobilize in those areas and help pull some of the trucks that have maybe been parked and are freezing over to get them unstuck, if you will, and moving along. But the first thing is to clear those incidents when they occur. And when you have two semi-tractor trailers that may get entangled, it's going to take a while to get emergency tow truck operators of the size needed to get out there and to remove those vehicles and clear the roadways. And then when they do, then it's an all hands on deck to get these roadways back up and operational. But it does take some time.
So is there anything going on actively that we know of? And maybe, Chief Kidd, this is a question for you in regards to, you're seeing those images, right?
Yep.
I mean, it's gridlock. It's stopped, and it's dangerous because people are, I know on I-40, and granted that's not us, but for 3 hours people are out there. And, it's just crazy.
Yep. And Rudy, it's a great question, and we need to get this answer out. One is we started sending messages 2 days ago with our local partners and press releases yesterday to make sure Texans were getting ready to prepare for this weather, number one. Number two, you've seen the state agencies, not just from the Department of Transportation, the Department of Public Safety, the military department using their heavy and high-profile vehicles and additional wreckers in order to be able to clear roads. Our private sector partners and these heavy wrecker companies are also key to our success in getting the roads reopened. Those wrecks that have already happened, it will be a while before we can get to them and start moving those vehicles apart and getting the people out. And you heard Colonel McCraw say a few minutes ago, transportation to a hospital right now is very time delayed just because of the road conditions. And so I want to keep pushing this message. If you do not have to be outside right now in the weather impacted areas, stay home.
Very good.
And the local partners have been absolutely essential in doing that, Moody.
Other questions? Go ahead.
I have a question about the power grid.
Mhm.
During the in February of 2021, consumers complained about higher prices after such cold weather. Do you think that consumers will face higher electricity prices again after this winter storm?
Consumers should not experience anything near those extraordinary prices. We've put in multiple reforms to address that. First and foremost, reducing the highest allowable price in ERCOT by almost 50%. In addition to that, we've built in a bigger margin of safety by having more reserves available, and by having more reserves available and making the grid more reliable, it reduces prices. And finally, we're operating the grid with an abundance of caution to make sure that we have more generators available sooner rather than later. And those generators, unlike in Winter Storm Uri, those generators are now winterized and hardened against this kind of extreme cold.
Chairman, building on that, real quick question. I talked to a energy expert. He was concerned about the wind farms and how much they add to the grid right now. Are there any signs showing that the wind farms are freezing up, and what's being done to prevent that?
We have seen some icing on wind generators, and ERCOT's forecasting is taking that into account. We don't expect much wind generation throughout this winter weather event, but despite that, we have adequate reserves and are prepared to meet all the demand for electricity in Texas.
So if we lose any farms, Ms. Vegas, we're okay?
Yes, we've already seen about 10,000 megawatts of wind farms iced up and not able to deliver power, but that was part of our forecast. We didn't anticipate having much wind supply this event. So we have plenty of supply from dispatchable thermal generators that are online and running, and so we don't expect any issues from that.
Sorry, the light problem earlier this week.
Fox News caused the power to go out. All right, well, listen, thank you all very much, and a very special thank you to all first responders who are working 24/7 to protect our fellow Texans.